Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Office Pro TV. I'm your host, Justin Dennison, and we're continuing on with our Excel 2016 Essentials series. And, well, we're coming back at you with common number formats. And I know, if you've seen the introduction, you're like, does it really matter? I promise you it does. And here to actually show us that it does is Ms. Vaughn Smith. How are you doing today, Vaughn?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to format some numbers.
That sounds wonderful. Sounds delicious and well, enticing. So common number formats, when we say common, we usually say, oh, well, everybody knows what I'm talking about. But what are we actually talking about?
Well, I was kind of struggling on how to title this one because we're going over specific categories of numbers that are like things that have to do with decimals, money. You know, that's another common way to display numbers. Percentages, fractions, and scientific notation. So, and I couldn't really put them all in their own little, like, hey, we're going to put every single one of them past the, like, colon in the number format. So I just went with common number formats. So there's your explanation. It's just me grouping them all together. So, yeah, but like I said, different ways that we're going to show numbers, and I have our worksheet in this workbook, so why don't we come on down, and this is just the next worksheet over. It's called number. If you're like, how do you get those names down there? Watch the managing worksheets and workbooks, or managing workbooks. It's the last episode in this series, so we talk about that. And I have some typed in numbers, right? Decimal places. We have our, tenth, 100th, 1,000th, and then some more decimals past that, past the third. So how many decimal places do we have? Negative numbers, all of those types of things. So a lot of the numbers that are in that format, and then we're going to just change the way they look. And I have down here in these rows like some ways that I can remind myself like which column I want to format certain ways. So we're just going to start from the left and I'll move on over. Okay, so right here, yeah, just like I said, how many decimal places do we have? Some have none, some have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and looking up at our formula bar, that is how it's typed in. And the other thing is right now, they're all formatted as general. Okay, so it's basically just kind of general for the most part, not all the time, but for the most part, it's going to keep whatever you typed in. If I typed in 12, keeps it. 12.34567, it keeps that too. It doesn't round. It just is going to go ahead and keep whatever decimal places that you typed in. But if I wanted to keep this consistent, maybe we are only wanting to display to the second decimal place, or maybe just whole numbers, round up or round down. And the rules of rounding, 5 and above, or all that kind of fun stuff. We'll just let Excel go ahead and do the round, but that is the rule, right? 5 and above, 4.999999 and below, and that's...
Yeah, and that's to the respective place, right? So if I want to round to the tenths, then I actually come to the hundredths and apply that rule. And there is some argument if you're like, well, actually, Justin, I know there are some, because really what we have is 0 to 4, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So, okay, well, that's... I've actually seen people argue that 5 should kind of bounce up and down, alternating. I think that's a lot more complicated, and unless you have an incredibly large data set, it doesn't actually matter. But 5 and above will round up for the decimal place to the left, and then below 5 will round down for that decimal place to the left.
Exactly, and luckily Excel will do that for us, so we don't have to think too much about it, but knowing the general rules of rounding is really good to go with. So I am going to select all of these cells right here, and I'm going to come up to the number formattings, and there's a couple things. First of all, I'm going to drop this down and show you that I could go ahead and format this as a number. Now, do I have to format this as a number? Could I keep it as general? Yeah, you could. It's not going to make, well, it'll make a big difference only because of what the number format entails. Let's just click on it to see that it will automatically round to or only keep 2 decimal places, okay? And I have some pound signs in here, which means that my column isn't wide enough, so I'm just going to go ahead and widen that out a little bit so we can see. So I'm also going to undo twice just to give you a visual representation of like, look, 45, that's just a whole number. This has 1, 2, 3, 4. watch what happens again when we change this to a number. It then will put 0.00 for 45. It did some rounding right here. Notice that it was inserted as 12.346. So the 6 made the 4 go to a 5, and that's what we have going on here. And that's what we're seeing with our number. So yes, it will go ahead and add 2 decimal places because that's just the default formatting of the number format. So I'm going to select this text again, and then there's some other buttons up here that if I had just kept it general, let's go back to that, okay? So going back to the way I had it typed in, I could have just clicked these little buttons up here. This is my increased decimal. This is my decreased decimal. So if I increase it, notice that it went ahead and said, all right, well, let me go ahead and add a couple more and add a few more. If I decrease, then I can basically make them all like round up to the whole number. And this automatically, when you hit these buttons, it automatically puts it into the number format. Okay, so those, they kind of, it's like, they're almost the same thing, just different ways of getting around to it. The other thing you can do is you can go into the more number formats, and then in this particular category here for number, how many decimal places do I want? The other thing is kind of fun is maybe you want to use the comma as your separator for your 1,000, 1,000ths. No, 1,000, not if.
No TH on that. For the thousands place and the millions place, and essentially your powers of 10 that are threes, right? Thousands, millions, billions, trillions, and then there's some after that that will also have commas after them.
Yes, exactly. Because when I said thousandths, that's on the other side of the decimal. Thousands, that's on that side of this. I'm gonna try to stop teaching y'all math because it's not a good thing. Anyways, the other thing you can do is how you treat your negative numbers. Do you want to have an actual like negative sign? Another common way of displaying numbers that are negative, a little bit more in like accounting circles, but you put the parentheses around it. Another thing could be, is the number black or is the number red? But red is also an indication of negative. It all kind of depends on which circle you travel in and in what way like you want to have your numbers displayed. So we'll have fun and just do a red and parentheses. So these are more things that we can go ahead and do with this particular number format. And then when we look out here, yep, now you can see my negative numbers are being displayed as red automatically and then with the parentheses. So some fun stuff, and that's just different ways that you can do it. Because maybe you're taking measurements that you have to have 2 decimal places, so you might as well go ahead and format it. So that way I could be, if I had these right here, I could say, all right, well, I keep hitting the wrong key because I forgot I'm in my virtual. So then I could just type in 34. It's going to automatically put in that 0.00. And if I type in 12.5, it'll be 12.50. You know, that type of stuff of how you can input your information and have it formatted properly.
Now, Vaughn, could we undo that? Because I know there was one that had original, like a lot of decimal places. I think it was 12,567. But if you click on that, even if we do the move, just to reemphasize, if we look up the formula bar, all of that information's still there. Mm-hmm. It's just how we're seeing it. It's not actually changing the underlying data. So if you're like, wait a minute, if I move decimal places, well, in a calculator, you might lose information. If you're writing it down on paper, you might lose information. Then in Excel, all it does is change how you view it. It does not change the underlying data. I'm sure there's always an exception to the rule. But I do have a follow-up question. We have decimals for the decimal places, right? This is the United States, and then we have commas for thousands, millions, trillions. There are some locales that allow us to use those as switched. So it'll be 1.00 comma 00 for 1,000 with 2 decimal places. Is that a format capability of Excel?
As far as I know, because when we go into here, yes, it is indicating that the separator is by a comma. Now, I will say, unfortunately, fortunately, I don't know which way we want to go with, but like, I'm very U.S. centric. I have never lived outside the United States, so I don't know whether this is a version, or is it a regional thing that you can change? Maybe even in like your operating system that would somehow change your applications. I really don't know. I would have to look that up to make sure. And then if I really wanted to, what I would do is I would do a custom number format to where I would say, all right, at this particular place, or my separator is going to be a period or a dash or a slash, or it could be a tilde for all, you really want. I would go to that route for anything that's not going to fall within the norm of what this particular format does. So more on custom number formats in a later episode. So a good point. Currency versus accounting, okay? How do we want to see our money? Well, I want to see lots of it, but this is just how we're displaying, is this a monetary value? I'm going to just quickly do the two formats, and then Justin, I'm going to ask you what the difference is. So let's go with currency. And then we go with, I think I did it backwards down here, but that's all right. We'll go with accounting. And, well, what's the difference there, Justin?
Well, with accounting, your currency symbol is actually left justified, and then your remaining amounts are right justified. So you kind of spread those things apart. Whereas in currency, they're kind of just squished together. In addition to in accounting, a standard practice is negative numbers are surrounded with parentheses to say you're in the hole, right? You have a negative value there, and that allows you to do a quick up and down glance. Did I cover everything?
Pretty much. I think the only other thing, and only because you pointed out in the other episodes, was the little minus sign outside of the monetary symbol, like the US dollars. And that was something that I honestly never really noticed, like that, detailed. I'm like, yeah, that's right. And you said it could also look like another character.
Yeah, so the minus symbol, that's easy to miss if you're doing like a top down. If you go plus, 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 minus, plus, plus. That minus symbol is now outside the currency. You might miss it, and you might add something that's actually an expense. But I'm talking money because that's probably where this applies, right? Oh, I have all this revenue, and actually you've, oopsie-daisy, counted an expense as a revenue. Whereas in accounting, the parentheses are nestled before the currency symbol. Those are separated, and you can't mess those up. In addition, the nestled dollar sign, in the case of the dollar, sometimes at a quick glance, it looks like a 5. So 12 could be 512, and you're like, yeah. Oh, wait a minute. I just have $12 in my banking account.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I was like, that does look like a 5 because it's right next to the numbers. You don't have that, convention of everything. Of the dollar sign is always to the left. So I thought those were good points that I never really thought much past as oh, okay, yeah, everything's left aligned. So I thought that was pretty cool. And that's the difference between accounting versus currency, okay? Just how you look at it. And just like before, you could go into each one of these and go into the number formats and say, how many decimal places? Usually with money, it's, I guess the most conventional one is with 2 decimal places, but you could change that. And then with currency, you could see how you have the other options of how you want to display your negative numbers. The other thing here, I'm going to undo this just twice so you could see it. The little money sign right up here, the little button, it's just like the little decimal places. It's just a quick button to format as accounting. So it will automatically format as accounting if you wanted to do that. The other point is this little drop down right here. Like if you want to go to euros or the Chinese yen, this is not going to convert your, I forgot it again.
It is not going to give you exchange rates for respective currencies because those are always fluctuating based on currency markets, right? What the dollar is worth versus the yen today at the recording of this episode, or even an hour from now, is going to vary. So it's just changing a symbol. It's not actually converting monetary amounts.
And I couldn't remember this in the last series. I'm like, that thing that you do to change money? And I'm like, exchange rate. It says when you exchange rate your money. Okay, exactly. It's not going to do that. All it's doing is just the display of that particular symbol indicating that this is going to be in euros and not American dollars. That's all it's doing. No exchange. Could you do? Yes, you can go and do this external data pull, and then you can do some formulas with it and all that kind of fun stuff, and have it refresh the data. That'd be great. Totally another episode. Totally other end of the spectrum, if you want to say, in Excel. We have episodes on it, but just not in this one. Okay, lovely, fun. Ooh, now let's go on to the more mathy stuff. Let's get into percentages and more percentages. I just have 2 columns in here. And then get into fractions. All right, these ones up here, these are pretty easy. 0.5, okay, well then that's 50%. Okay, 2.5, that's 25% because it's like you take the decimal point and you move it over, right? And then you move it back and do like the decimal to the left, decimal to the right, and that would do some ways that you change numbers around. Cool. But when you get into here, I'm like, I don't know exactly what that is. So let's just go ahead and select these. This is a quick button right here. Oh, by the way, this one right there would actually just give you the separator, the comma. But let's click on this button and let's see what it does. It changes it to a percent. Okay, great. And you can see that, yeah, that looks pretty good. And really, if I would have just thought about what I was doing, this decimal, you just move it to the 2 to the right, and it's about 16% because we're rounding up. And yeah, there you go. Told you I wasn't very good at math. So we've got that. And that looks pretty fine. But then when you come over to here, this is where it gets maybe a little bit different in the sense of like, now we have like 1.5, 15, 100, 1, 2, 3.789. And if I change that to a percentage, now we're getting in a little bit, maybe a little different area of like, okay, well, it's doing exactly what it tells it it's going to do. It's going to move the decimal. But now if I type in like 12.56, now that's 13%. And 1.45, well, now that's 1%. No, but that's, if it's 1 as a whole and then 45 as my, see, this is where it gets a little weird, doesn't it, Justin?
This is one of those edge cases because if you have a pre-existing value, then yeah, 1,234 is 12,340%, or whatever that number was.
Right here, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep. Yeah. So add 2 zeros, and that's what the percentage becomes. But if it was already pre-formatted to a percent, it's like, oh, you mean 1,234%, not make this a percentage. That can be a whoopsie daisy. The underlying data has not changed. How it's viewed and how you reason about it can be affected, though. Because if you come down through there and you're like, oh, man, we had like 123,000% increase in revenue. No, you had 1,000%, which is still good, but they're significantly different. They're 2 orders of magnitude. You multiply by 10 twice or by 100 can definitely mess you up, especially if you're sending this out to someone.
Yeah, and that's exactly the whole pre-formatting versus formatting after the fact. And that this is not like true math, if you want to say. I mean, it's math, but it's weird, and so you've got to be really careful, especially if like you're just changing the display. And let's just come into here just to see what the number formats say about this. See, it says percentage. Percentage formats multiply the value, cell value, by 100 and display the result with a percent symbol. Let me zoom back out and just move this over a little bit so you can see that. So that's what it's saying it's going to do for you. Okay, so when I type this in now, it goes in a different way. Okay, so it's pre-format, after format. You got to be careful about it. And then if I increase, let's take all of these, and if I increase the decimal, well, I guess that would be the other way. So now you can see that some of those ones that did have a decimal place once I did the formatting, it will come up. So that base value of like what's the underlying information, it does stay there. It says that it's 15.678%, but we're only showing whole decimals or whole numbers. So that's why you don't see it. So percentages. Okay, cool. Don't rely on this to do your math. It's just how you're going to type it. And so if you know that you need to show this in percentage, you would probably want to format it first, and then when you type in 12, it's 12%, or 12.245, that's still 12%. Okay, so a little bit of carefulness going on there. And then the same thing with your fractions. Okay, fractions, and this was fun in the other episode where you started throwing out some more terms. I'm just like, I don't remember what that is. But luckily, I know now because I had a little review in our other episodes. So if I take this and format this as a fraction, okay, most of these are going to be okay, but then you get into, and just to show you, 15.7. Okay, well, that is, I keep hitting the wrong keys. I'm sorry, guys. When I go back and make that a fraction, well, then there you go. You have 15.2 and 1 3/5. And these are mixed numbers, which you don't want to do, right?
Yeah, and full disclosure, that's my opinion, and actually that's a shared opinion among a great deal of people. Mixed numbers are hard to reason about because there's some idiosyncrasies there. And Vaughn, I'm not going to ask you because we've already had this discussion. Excel is incapable of showing this as improper fractions. But I do want to ask you a follow-up question. That 15.7, that says 15.23, or 2 divided by 3, 2/3. I know that 0.7 is not 2/3, actually. There is a little bit of variability there. Is that something that we can adjust?
You can with the options. And let's look at it. Okay, so let's take that, and just to give you, okay, that's what it was before. We went ahead and formatted this as fractions, so now you can see that was that 2/3. Let's come down into the more number formats because then you can break it down even more. So you can see that it's going like up to 1 digit, 2 digits, 3 digits. Okay, do I want to display as hundredths? All right, so that's where you can start. Let's go with hundredths just for fun. So now everything's in, okay, 70 over 100, right? That's 0.7, right?
Yep,
yeah. Okay.
that is 0.7. And what's interesting that you picked as per hundredths, percent means per 100. If you look at the top number on these fractions and you go over and you look at the percentage column, guess what you see in the percentage column? Just the top number of a number expressed as something divided by 100. 40 out of 100 times, well, percent, per century, per 100, that's what that means. So, nice little math lesson.
Yeah, I love that. I totally meant to do that. But it's a great, and when you were saying that, I'm like, oh, well, then look at this. It was 15, this is 1,570%. It's really 15 as a number, and it's 70/100ths. So, yeah, and there's a great Excel lesson nestled into that. It's like we planned this. Well, kind of, actually. But so now you know that you can have different degrees of fractioning. I don't think that's a word, is it? But it's close enough. So, yes, you can change the options in your fractions.
Okay, so I like that you can change the options, but I would recommend if you're using fractions, you use them for a very specific reason, right? You want to show that there's some kind of trend and it's easy to see in a fraction. If you have mixed numbers, I recommend you, unless you have a very good reason for your particular use case, to shy away from those because they're harder to reason about. Show them as a decimal. Show them as a percentage if you need to, an actual percent that is properly formatted and doesn't give weird stuff. Because mixed numbers, well, they're just weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're all mixed up. That's all they are.
Exactly. Yeah. So maybe just like you said, decimals, show them that way. Fractions are weird, and I feel like I remember crying about them quite a few times when I was a child trying to do the math homework. So, scientific notation. Okay, so we saw in the introduction that if I typed in 1E12, that is going to throw it into something like this. Well, what does that mean? Okay, I will be honest. I've had to look this up many times, and I have to remind myself every time when I start teaching this stuff, like, oh, yeah, let me make sure I remember this. I have some websites that show you how this works, and so it's saying that the replacing the part of the number with an E plus the N, where E stands for exponent, multiplies the preceding number by 10 to the nth power. For example, a 2-decimal scientific format displays 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, 1 as 1.23 E plus 10. So, which is 1.2 times 10 to the 10th power. If you're still like, okay, I also have a math is fun. Okay, so maths is fun. Anyways, this website, okay, I just realized it has a maths. Okay, great. It's also known as standard form. Okay, so that's just a different way of writing a number. And I remember it kind of like this. Okay, yes, 700 is 7 times 10 to the second. Okay, cool. And then so it's just kind of giving, if you're trying to remember these math lessons back from 5th or 4th or wherever grade we learned how to do this, maybe this is hopefully bringing some of this back. The other cool thing back in Excel is what I could do is that as soon as I put that E in and it's scientific, what if I took this and then just made it into a number? Oh, well, that's what the number is. It's taking really large numbers and trying to make it a little easier. So if I typed in like 1.45 E10, okay, then if I look at that and try and change it back to a number, then that's how many zeros I have.
And it is how many times the decimal place moves over number of zeros. I tell you what, Vaughn, you definitely love that tile view.
I keep doing that. I'm so sorry.
But I did want to bring up a point because this is one of those edge cases where typing this in the general can actually change the data that you meant to put in there. If I put 1E10 and you meant it as 1E10, right? Literally, now if you go back and look at that in the formula bar, it shows it as 10 trillion, I think. No, 10 billion. So the underlying, it's saying, oh, you meant to represent this number. If you actually meant just text, then the notation has changed. So just keep that in mind if you're using it for any type of decision-making process or whatever.
Yeah, and the one that I thought was kind of fun that you talked about when we said, I want to change this to scientific, was like when you're doing numbers, like really, really large numbers or really, really small numbers, because we could do this in reverse. I remember this from you telling me, like if I did negative, how did I need to
So 1 or 0.00000, just put a bunch of zeros and then put a 1. All right, hit enter. And now that is scientific notation for a very small decimal number. And people are like, why would you ever use that? Well, I will tell you, if you have measurements that are giant or you have measurements that are tiny, then being able to run through and look at these numbers on the right-hand side, it allows you to pick outliers, and now you can go, oh, is this valid? Does this make sense? Like if I'm looking down through there, the fact that I had giant positive numbers and then giant negative numbers, I go, something's wrong. I had really large numbers initially, like trillions, and now I have really small numbers again. Or if you have something where it's like E10, 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 E12, that's 100 times different. 100 times different, well, that should make you go, hold on a second, that doesn't sound right. Especially if you take something like, I'm measuring the voltage coming into my house. Oh, is it 210 volts or is it 21,000 volts? That's totally different ball game. So that's a quick way to do a check.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool because those are things that I don't kind of travel in the scientific circle necessarily or doing engineering things. And yeah, I just thought that was a really cool example of like, oh wow, that's even if it's 2 digits, from 10 to 12, but we're not talking about 10 to 12. We're talking, like you said, like hundreds and everything. So I thought that was pretty cool and different ways to do it. And then yes, if I took all of these and changed them into a number, they really do look that way. And like, why does that show up this way? Why? Because I am only showing 2 decimal places, and these are very small, but again, underlying information still looks like that. So different ways. A lot of times for me, I want to avoid scientific notation. I need a mixture, so I format everything as text and then type in to accept the E as a letter and not something different. So, but people in the scientific community, of course, will use Excel, and then you might need to go ahead and change your numbers that way. So, a lot of fun stuff. I just realized, I kind of looked over the clock. I'm like, ooh, goodness, I think I just talked a lot about this stuff. But hopefully it gave you some good insight into the display, your formatting, why it's doing certain things, not to rely on it to do your math for you a lot of times, and just more information about how to format your numbers.
Well, Vaughn, those are definitely things we're going to encounter on a common basis. So I think you titled this perfectly, even though it had a bunch of different number formats. But we're not finished with number formats. We've talked about text, and we saw dates in the previous episode. there's a lot more coming at you, so you should definitely come back. But for us, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. So signing off for Office Pro TV, I've been your host, Justin Dennison.
And I'm Vaughn Smith.
And we'll see you next time.